Ugh. How long has it been since E3 again? Well, guess I missed that hype train. But it's not like there was much to get excited about. Why are you booing? You know I'm right. It's a first trailer for a Fire Emblem game. There's more information in your history textbook than in this video. And of course, when a game like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 with an over 100-hour campaign, even if it was clearly rushed, didn't get delayed, it stings just a little bit more when Fire Emblem is what killed Nintendo's perfect record, because Intelligent System says otherwise. Okay, now that I'm done talking about a topic staler than day-old donuts, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this video, prepromotes. Prepromotes are a divisive topic in the Fire Emblem community, but then again, what isn't a divisive topic in this cesspool of a fanbase? Regardless of whether you think prepromotes are inherently bad, or just add another factor to consider when evaluating units, I'm going to talk about 10 prepromotes that I feel are great. These games on screen are the ones that I have experience with, and I have played all of them on varying difficulties, hence they're the only ones that I will pick candidates from for this list. With all that out of the way, I'm the Omni Blade, and let's get started. Fire Emblem recruitments can be complex at times. Sometimes you need the not lord to talk to the gal with the portrait, sometimes you need a life savings amount of money to recruit the member card, and sometimes you take a Law Goose unit to the other side of a desert and place them on a specific tile to recruit a character. People still say the Tellus games are well designed, right? Stefan, who I'm surprised doesn't have some weird name like the Desert Tiger, is probably point for point the strongest unit you recruit relative to the strength of your army in any FE game. Stefan is a swordmaster with S-rank swords and some of the most ridiculous bases on any pre-promote. You recruit Stefan before Ike even promotes, meaning that at Ike's potential best, Stefan will have 5 more speed and 7 more skill. This madman, like everyone else on this list, doesn't have the common weakness of low growth that pre-promotes are known for having. He may only have 12 levels to grow, but he still has 50% or higher growths in speed and strength if that tickles your fancy. Stefan's one weakness, if he were to have one, would be his low defenses, as he only has 12 defense and 9 resistance with low growths in both of those stats. Since dodge tanking isn't the most viable strategy, you don't really have a plan B should he get hit by a few lucky 40%ers. And no, low luck isn't a weakness for this man. Most of the units on this list have below average luck, and that doesn't stop them in the slightest. Now, let's talk about Stefan's join weapon, the Vague Caddy. The Vague Caddy is an S-rank sword that has 12 might, 80 hit, 35 crit, and gives the user 3 additional defense. This weapon is the cherry on top of the double layer ice cream boss killing cake that Stefan is. So why is he only number 10 on this list? Simple, you're not getting him. If Stefan was more easily accessible, he'd easily be higher up. But how on Tellius were we supposed to figure out how to recruit Stefan? Trial and error? I don't have time for that. Bonus experience is a wasting and retention is dropping. Next unit! There are a bunch of games that many newer Fire Emblem fans will never get to play, but in all honesty, that might be for the best. I don't care how much you like these games, we're not sitting here and acting like strategy games made for the Famicom and Super Famicom are fair and balanced when things like Thracia Staves exist. Did FE6 do much better as a GBA game? No, but I still like this bootleg version of FE1, and it did get a few things right. Like Echidna, I like heroes. Not you, that's better. And I like axe-based heroes, so when FE6 gives me the choice to choose between Bartre or the sole, swole female hero in all of the GBA games that focuses on axes, the choice is obvious. Echidna is the character you recruit in Chapter 11 should you take the superior A path in the Western Isles, as that path gives you a better Gonzalez and the dancer, Lara. I've already mentioned Echidna's gimmick, which is being an axe hero, but her bases are as built as she is, with 19 skill and 18 speed, meaning she doesn't suffer from the 2 problems that many other axers in this game are plagued by, which are an inability to double and these insufferable hit rates. You're telling me this game is using true hit?
Nothing but lies. Lies! 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 Lies!
Echidna even comes with a B rank in axes, meaning she has access, to a wide variety of weapons, like the Brave Axe you got last chapter. She also has a C rank in swords, meaning she can use killing edges at base, which are in abundance if you can reach the right shops. In terms of weaknesses, Echidna does admittedly have low gross, as nothing aside from HP is above 30%, meaning she will struggle late game, but can still function with proper investment, effective resource management, and a little bit of luck. Her low constitution of 9 is also an issue, as axes are notoriously heavy, especially in FE6. A steel axe reduces her attack speed, meaning how much effective speed Echidna has, by 6, and hand axes do the same by 3. This makes Echidna an incredible candidate for the body ring, as it mitigates one of her biggest issues. Overall, Echidna may not be a boss killer like Stefan, but she's a competent unit whose efforts to liberate the Western Isles didn't go unnoticed by this tactician. Dussel, Dussel, Battery Man? I don't know how to pronounce this Sean Connery looking cockslap's name, since Magville names are just the most impossible things to pronounce. Dussel, which is what I'm going with, is the only Great Knight on this list. That's right, Freddy Bear, you can stay over at IGN headquarters because we're trying to finish the game here. Dussel is a monster for the time he joins you in Ephraim's path, which is the version of Dussel I'll be talking about, since in Erica's path, he's virtually useless. No unit, not even Seth, can match Dussel's HP, strength, defense, and resistance stats at this point, but as if that wasn't enough, Dussel comes with competent growths as well. His would-be weaknesses are his low speed and skill, but Dussel in the Western releases of Sacred Stones has an A rank in the entire weapon triangle, meaning he can use every sword, axe, and lance in the game that isn't a legendary weapon at base. And Dussel earned those glorious weapon ranks as he has 15 constitution, meaning he can use a steel axe, a freaking steel axe, the most unwieldy of weapons with no attack speed loss. This man works out. However, Sean Connery over here earned his spot above the previous two because he is the best user of one of Grado's sacred twins, the Garmax. This axe has 20 might, 75 hit, 13 weight, and a plus 5 speed boost to the user, making this the one and only weapon of the Obsidian. Considering you get this axe as early as chapter 14 in Ephraim's Path, Dussel is ready to become a war god in the third act. Late game potential issues with prepromotes end here, folks, but Dussel has one critical flaw that can't be overlooked: his movement. Dussel is a Great Knight in Sacred Stones, meaning he has only 6 movement, which is the same as any regular promoted class, but is mounted, meaning he has the worst mobility in the game, and his high constitution means it's nearly impossible for him to be rescued. Every move counts with Dussel since you have no room for error with this general, but use the Obsidian properly and you won't be disappointed. I definitely had some struggles in deciding whether Dussel belonged at this spot or not, but I put my bias against FE7 aside and realized Pent is just that good. FE7 is one of the FE games I have the least experience with, considering I just don't enjoy it as much, but I don't think it takes that much experience with this game to see how borked Pent is. Remember that one mage in that desert map who you had to go out of your way to rescue since he was too OP and you needed to get the experience so you could reach the side chapter? That WMD is yours now. Pent is a perpetual L-fire cannon that will double and one-round virtually anything in his path thanks to his 18 magic, 17 speed, and 8 constitution. Pent has only 1 AS loss with his default L-fire tome, and in comparison, Urk has 3 AS loss and Nino 4, and this is with their promoted stats. Pent even has the best bulk out of the 3 anima mages with his 11 defense and 33 HP, letting him take a few hits just fine. But as if his bases weren't enough, let's talk about his weapon ranks. The Mage General has an A rank in both tomes and staves, meaning he can use every staff and tome in the game except for the Excalibur tome at base. What seals the deal for Pent is the lack of investment required when compared to his competition. While Urk and Nino in 2020 do have better final stats on average than Pent, the amount of investment and babying they need to reach that point like a guiding ring for starters, is simply not worth it when you can just use Pent. His growths mean nothing since his bases are competent enough to use in the final chapter, no problem. Great bases, solid bulk, excellent weapon ranks, constant 1-2 range. What could hold Pent back? The same thing that ruins all gamers' potential: waifus. Pent comes with an A support with Louise, which sounds nice at first, but if Louise dies in battle, then Pent leaves your army, so just bench Louise and you won't have to worry about her 28 HP and 9 defense taking away the best thing to ever grace your army. In all seriousness though, Pent's join time is his major flaw, but it's like they say, better late than never. Here's a hot take. Early game pre-promotes that join you at the beginning of the game aren't actually that bad. I know that a lot of veteran players tend to say that newer players fall into the noob trap of using the Jagan, but honestly, are they really messing up? A lot of the early game pre-promotes we get in the newer installments of Fire Emblem, hell, even ones back in the GBA era, have been some of the best units we've seen, so I'm gonna talk about two of them right now, which are Titania and Marcus. Why am I talking about two units in this spot, you might be asking? It's because anything I say about one of these units can be said about the other. So I'm just going to focus mostly on Titania in terms of footage since she's more popular. Path of Radiance has some difficult maps early on due to the Grail mercenaries being all over the place in terms of level and stats, but Titania is your saving grace as her bases let her double anything in the early game, meaning she can deal with swarms that pose a threat to your squishier units like Rifts and Sorin. Once you get to a point where your other units have some levels under their belt, Titania's growth will help her stay one step above everyone else, and she may have even reached S-rank axes in that time if you use her diligently. Having a 45% growth in strength, a 60 in skill, and a 50 in speed all ensure that Titania will continue to be a great offensive force for the rest of the game. Her defensive growths are also worth mentioning, as her 80 in HP, 40 in defense, and 45 in resistance give Titania more than enough wiggle room to take on clusters in the late game. Her above average resistance alongside her use of hand axes and javelins make her one of the better mage killers in the game. Now, take everything I said about Titania and apply it to Marcus. The man's growths aren't as good, with his HP and skill being the only ones above 40%, but his base 15 strength, 11 speed, 11 constitution, and 8 movement with access to the entire weapon triangle with A ranks in both swords and lances with a B and axes all make him more than capable of dealing with the slower enemies in Blazing Blade, hence why I think both of these guardians deserve to share a spot on this list. What separates the top half of this list from the bottom half is necessity. The last entries all had reasons for not being used because of a weakness like availability or experience siphoning if you're worried about raising a balanced team. The next 5 units all join you relatively early on, have incredible base stats and growth rates, and have next to no weaknesses. So, who better to kick off the cream of the crop than
The glory of Hoshido!
The Royals in Fates are just some of the most overpowered units in any Fire Emblem game, and in making a top 10 talking about pre-promotes, we're gonna have to mention generic husbando voiced by Matt Mercer number 47. So get ready, Fates haters, you may start typing your S's in the comment section now because Camilla is inevitably going to show up on this list. I've given my thoughts on Ryoma before in my top 10 Fates Royals video, but there I talked more about his character, whereas now, I can talk about his viability, which coincidentally is when Birthright's difficulty drops off, as shown by this graph I made on screen. When Ryoma joins you with base 20 strength, 24 speed, 16 defense, and an 11 might sword that gives him 1-2 range on top of an additional 4 strength, what can you do? Really, what can you do? That's disgusting. Like, serving his own kind with mac and cheese levels of disgusting. How could you not use this lightning lobster deity? The reason Ryoma is only number 5 on this list, despite his sheer brokenness, is because you don't need him for Birthright. I mean, you'd be insane not to use him, but Birthright is perfectly manageable without him, given the easier nature of the game. And that's really all I have to say about him. I mean, it's Ryoma. Do you really need me to tell you that he's good? know how the dumbest part about Marth's story was not being able to recruit Camus?
Hi, Camus.
Shut it, bird.
Deja vu?
Well, FE6 thought the same and gave you this sexy beast to trample over the second half of the game. Cecilia may have inherited Pent's name as the Mage General, but fuck that, she sucks. The true successor of Pent's almighty legacy is Percival, because my goodness, look at this man's abs. I mean bases. His growths aren't anything great, but when you have base 17 strength and 18 speed, do you really need good growths? His HP, strength, skill, and speed bases are the highest among any unit who joins you in FE6, period. Percival also has the advantage of being a paladin in FE6, where the maps are a bit larger than usual, so his mounted mobility is incredibly welcome. There's also his weapon ranks, which are an A in swords and lances and a C in axes. FE6 actually lets the player have fun because units can have multiple S ranks, and Percival is a fantastic user of any legendary weapon. I bet I can predict what some of you are typing on the comments section now that you saved your progress on your Fates hate essay. Wow, this is such a garbage video, you didn't even mention the hard mode bonuses! Well, I just did, so what are you gonna do now? You still commented that, didn't you? Hard mode bonuses are a mechanic in FE6 and 7 that is self-explanatory. So while Percival was a beast in normal mode, get a load of these hard mode bases. Look at the raw power of 50 HP, 20 strength, 20 speed, 16 defense, 13 resistance, and base 12 constitution. Percival transcends the shackles of humanity that bind him in normal mode and becomes a literal god in hard mode. By the time you get him in chapter 15, you've won the game. He didn't need growths in normal mode, but here, have some more stats, Percy. This man could have 0% in all of his growths, and he'd still mow down the burnt army like a hot malt head through butter. Alright, so this list has existed, but I know some of you are probably wondering when I'm going to talk about Har. I won't, because in Path of Radiance he's okay, and in Radiant Dawn he's not a pre-promote. Considering all the base units from Part 2 onwards join you at Tier 2 or higher, Har is their pre-promote, he's just broken. There aren't many pre-promotes in Radiant Dawn, and the number that stay is even smaller. You got Sothe though. Remember that worthless child you found on a boat in Path of Radiance? Well, puberty turned him into the single most useful unit in Radiant Dawn. Note how I said useful and not best. That's Har. But before you get Wyvern Daddy, you must endure Part 1 and it's rough to say the least. Sothe lords over the Dawn Brigade with his base 18 strength, 20 speed, and being knives. Well, I guess if a game has a knife Jagan, it's doomed to awful storytelling. Sothe's base stats are legendary compared to other Jagans, but they are godlike in comparison to Dawn Brigade units that tend to have this bad habit of dying in one round of combat and dealing pathetic damage. How do you avoid this issue? Simple. Feed Sothe all the kills. Yeah, I know, IGN comments 7.8 out of 10, whatever. You are not losing experience in Part 1 by using Sothe. Instead, you are surviving because using the early Dawn Brigade members is tantamount to suicide. Edward sucks, Leonardo sucks, Laura sucks, even Micaiah. The main lord for this part dies to regular enemies since she has no speed or defense and instead has a rapier in the form of a pocket spirit bomb. Sothe is this high on this list not because he's a good unit. In fact, after Part 1, it's all downhill. Sothe becomes average in Part 3, falls off by Part 4, and is a liability in Endgame. However, Sothe's thirst for Micaiah benefits you, the player, since any sane unit would abandon this maiden once they saw all the horrible maps in Part 1. Sothe is how you get to the good stuff, like Olencia's growth as a literal and figurative queen, seeing the Grail mercenaries in action. Har. That is why I had to put Sothe this high on this list. Any unit that gives you access to a unit like Har deserves a medal. And well, bronze is as cheap as they come. Alright, let's make this quick. I've already talked about all the things I like about Camilla before, so I'll do my best to only be slightly redundant. The first question you might be asking is, why aren't you talking about Xander instead of Camilla? Isn't he better? Well, in my opinion, no, because Xander joins about 6 chapters later than Camilla, and while he is the second best pre-promote in Conquest, I don't want to put too many Fates characters on this list, so I just limited it to Ryoma and Camilla. Xander is strong and tanky, but his low speed and resistance really bite him in the late game. Camilla doesn't have that issue. I know some people have been screwed by Camilla before, somehow, but her bases and growths are so good that it really is a once-in-a-blue-moon situation. Camilla has many other great tools aside from her bases, like her skill set, her personal skill, flyer mobility, but best of all is her level buff. Camilla is programmed to have 5 fewer internal levels than a regular pre-promote, meaning that she gains experience like a level 15 unit at base. On screen, I'll flash Camilla's average level 20 stats. Camilla will have capped strength and speed at this point, and be less than 3 points off from her skill and resistance caps, and only 5 off from defense. You could even prioritize Camilla's stats by using one of the many heart seals you get in Conquest or Revelations, by making her a Wyvern Lord, where her strength, skill, speed, and defense all improve, and you get access to the Swordbreaker skill, helping her survivability immensely. If you're worried about things like bows, Camilla naturally has access to the Dark Mage line, meaning she can learn Bowbreaker if you want, nullifying her, in my opinion, only weakness. Camilla has such incredible versatility as a unit, and I didn't even mention all the possible ways she can use magic effectively, and that's why I had to give her the number 2 spot. I might be Camilla trash, but there is still one more entry on this list that I know surpasses this bewitching beauty.
Alright, maggots, listen up. Popo's about to teach you the pecking order. It goes you, the dirt, the worms inside of the dirt, Popo's stool, call me, then Popo. Any questions?
Yeah.
This comes as a surprise to probably no one, but Seth is easily the strongest unit in Fire Emblem history. Considering he's supposed to be the Jagan of Sacred Stones, the easiest installment in the series in my opinion, his number 1 spot was guaranteed from the start. Seth may not be able to survive one round against the final boss with his bases, but he's not that far off. Since Seth has 14 strength, 12 speed, and 11 defense at base with mounted mobility, why not give him a 50% strength growth and a 40% defense growth, both of which are 10% higher than the main lord for the first third of the game. He also has 11 constitution, meaning attack speed loss? What's that? Seth can't even use axes, so unless you're using the heavy spear, Seth is doubling everything for a good while with that 45% speed growth. Even his bulk is unmatched, as he has a 40% in defense and a 30 in res, and a 90% HP growth, which was buffed from the Japanese version. If you think the other Cavaliers eventually surpass Seth, you're mistaken. On average, Kyle, Ford, and Franz will match Seth and maybe get 1 or 2 extra points in certain stats, but otherwise, at best, they can stand on par with him. Seth also has A ranks in swords and lances and easy access to 1 to 2 ranges early as chapter 3, thanks to javelins being available in the first shop. Excellent bases, some of the highest growths in the game, and literally perfect availability. There was no contest from the start, people. Seth is the best pre-promote in Fire Emblem, and that title has gone uncontested for over 13 years, and unless Three Houses does something even more ridiculous than Seth, his reign will endure for several more. I'm the Omni Blade, and I only have one final thing to say. Who the fuck ruined him in Heroes? And I don't know how I'm gonna transition that, but that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys don't really care about a little update and little minor things I want to say, I'll leave a comment in it too, but y'all can just close the video now, so go on about with your merry ways. I hope to see you guys for my next top 10, be it Fire Emblem not sure yet. I have an idea as to what I want to do, probably based on the game you're seeing on screen now. My goal is to try and get a top 10 Blades in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 top 10 made before the Torna DLC comes out. I would like to replay New Game Plus and then see if I can get some footage that way myself and just kind of go through the game, go through the motions that way. I don't know. I might just end up recording it separately on my own again like I did with the original Xenoblade top 10, but I want to do more Xenoblade stuff. Xenoblade's getting more hype. I like Xenoblade, and I do have another Fire Emblem top 10 I'm just kind of sitting on like I did with this one, but now that I'm finally more adjusted to Premiere, I hope I can churn it out maybe in a month or two. I don't think it's anything too bad, but yeah. I have some other things. I will do an update probably in the next week since I am going to be quitting my job soon and going back to school again. So that's something I have to deal with. And a little amendum I want to make since I feel like people will comment on it and not read the thing I leave in the actual comment section. I didn't put any Echoes characters on this list because I wasn't really sure if they count or not. In retrospect, I probably could have put Zeke, Tatiana, and Matilda on this list. If you want to know where I'd roughly rank them, I'd say Zeke and Tatiana would share a spot at probably number 4, and I'd say Matilda would probably be number 6, probably, so that would knock out Echidna, Stefan. So, if you want to know where, like, Echo's characters were, I didn't feel like counting them because I didn't really know if they were pre-promotes because of Echo's system being weird with the whole leveling thing, and I don't know, like, technically you could have everyone tier 3 by the time Act 1 ends if you really wanted to, so that's why I didn't feel like doing it. That's really all I have to say. I don't have any more details. I'll be more specific and more concise in a future video, which I'll upload in a few days whenever I get around to it. But just want to say thank you all so much. I finally have the superior editing, and I finally know how to work with a lot of things that I've been wanting to do for years now, so hopefully this month started something new, and maybe we can go into things, get a little prep for Smash. I don't really know. That's all I gotta say. I hope you guys have a great day and or night whenever you're watching this, wherever the hell you are. I am out of here. Peace.